I'm Hypnos, and like every quiet night, I have a story to share. You may subscribe for the night ahead. Close your eyes and let the story begin. Imagine a boy perched high in the branches of a tamarind tree. The city hums below. Bicycles rattle along dusty roads. Temple bells ring in the distance, and families call children home for supper. But up there, in the stillness of the leaves, the boy is lost in another world. His dark eyes scan the horizon. His bare feet grip the bark, and time seems to pause around him. That boy was Jaggi, later known to millions as Sadhguru. But in those days, he was simply a child of Mysore, a quiet city in southern India, where white skies and open fields stretched beyond the edges of town. Jaggi was the youngest in his family. His father was a doctor, his mother gentle but firm. Life at home was orderly, meals at regular times, schoolwork expected, discipline valued. Yet Jaggi himself was anything but orderly. If his family asked where he was, often the answer was the same: outside. He wandered through streams, watched ants carry crumbs, follow the flight of birds until they vanished into the sun. He could sit for hours beside a tree or a river, not moving, not speaking, simply watching. Adults thought he was distracted, perhaps lazy. But Jaggi was not lost. He was deeply present. He felt connected to everything he saw, as if the world itself was speaking to him in silence. At school, things were different. Teachers wanted him to memorize lessons, but he asked questions that bent sideways. His attention drifted away from chalkboards and landed instead on the flutter of a butterfly or the movement of clouds. He was bright but restless, never fitting into the neat lines of the classroom. Friends admired his daring. He climbed higher than anyone else, balancing on the thinnest branches without fear. He swam in rivers, raced in bicycles, explored every corner of the city's outskirts. To him, boundaries were challenges to be crossed, not walls to obey. Yet, what stood out most was his stillness. Even as a child, when others ran and shouted, Jaggi could sit in complete silence, his gaze fixed on the horizon, as if he were listening to something far beyond sound. This was his childhood, half wild, half silent, always curious. He did not yet know where these qualities would lead, but in the heart of Mysore, under its skies and among its trees, a restless seeker was already being born. The boy who once sat silently in trees grew into a young man who could not stay still. Jaggi's teenage years were full of movement, fast rides, daring adventures, endless curiosity. If, as a child, he belonged to the skies and the fields, as a youth, he belonged to the road. By now, Mysore had changed. The city was busier, Streets crowded with bicycles, rickshaws in the growing hum of modern India. Jaggi moved through it with a mix of rebellion and charm. Where others obeyed rules, he tested them. Where others accepted boundaries, he pushed past them. Teachers saw him as difficult, classmates saw him as bold, and his parents saw him as a puzzle they could not quite solve. One of his greatest loves became motorcycles. The roar of the engine, the rush of the wind, the freedom of the road. These things thrilled him. He spent hours learning every detail, fixing part, and pushing the limits of speed. Friends remembered him racing down long stretches of road with fierce joy in his eyes. Riding was not just fun, it was his way of touching freedom. Yet even in his restless adventures, Jaggi carried silence within him. After long rides, he sometimes disappeared into the countryside, sitting quietly on a rock or beneath a tree. For hours he would stay there, calm, still, as if the world itself had slowed. To others, it looked strange. To Jaggi, it felt natural. The same boy who sought speed on the road sought stillness in nature. School did not capture his interest. He was clever, but ordinary lessons bored him. He passed exams when he wished, ignored them when he did not. His teachers could not predict him, and neither could his family. His mind worked differently, less focused on marks, more focused on experience. Friends flocked to him, drawn by his confidence and unpredictability. He was the one who dared, the one who tried, the one who never seemed afraid. Yet, when laughter faded and the crowd dispersed, Jaggi often slipped away, choosing solitude over noise. In those years, he lived on extremes. One day he was wild, speeding on roads, climbing walls, chasing adventure. The next he was quiet, lost in thought, gazing at stars that burned above Meso's warm night. He belonged to neither world fully, the restless and the still, but carried both inside him. His parents watched with worry. They hoped he would settle, study, follow a steady path. But Jaggi resisted. He told them, without anger, that he would live life on his own terms. For him, rules were cages. He longed for something beyond, though he could not yet name what it was. The city called him restless, but inside, a deeper hunger stirred. He wanted to taste life in its fullness, not just through speed, not just through silence, but through something larger, something that could not yet be seen. This hunger would not let him rest. It pushed him forward, past ordinary roads, toward the moment that would change everything. The restless young man who raced down Meso's road eventually found that even speed could not satisfy him. Jaggi enjoyed his adventures, but when the ride was over and the engine cooled, the same quiet question returned. Is this all there is? That question grew louder with time. He had tasted thrill, he had tasted silence, but something deeper pulled at him. He wanted to understand life, not just live it on the surface, but dive beneath it. He did not yet call himself a seeker, but that is what he had become. Jaggi began to travel whenever he had free time. He wandered across India. He visited forests where rivers curved through thick trees, mountains where air grew thin and sharp, villages where people lived simply. He absorbed everything, the faces, the smells, the rhythms of life. He watched how people prayed in temples, how they celebrated festivals, how they carried joy and sorrow. Books also became companions. He read about mystics, yogis and philosophers. Their words stirred something inside him, though they also left him with more questions. Could truth really be found in ink on a page? Could wisdom live only in stories of the past? Jaggi wanted more than theory. He wanted to feel it, touch it, experience it for himself. Friends noticed his difference. Some laughed at his long absences, calling him a wanderer. Others grew curious, asking why he searched so much. Jaggi really answered. His search was too personal, too wide for quick explanations. At times he felt torn. One part of him still loved adventure, the motorcycle rides, the daring act, the thrill of risk. Another part of him longed for stillness, the kind he had known as a child beneath trees. He was like a man carrying two rivers within him, each flowing in a different direction, each demanding his attention. His family continued to hope he would settle, find a steady career, follow a predictable path. But Jaggi was drawn to unpredictability. He believed life was not meant to be caged by expectation. He once said to himself, "If I cannot live life fully, what is the point of living at all?" So he kept searching, sometimes on roads, sometimes in books, sometimes in silence. He did not yet know that his search would one day lead to a single afternoon on a mountain, a moment so powerful that it would change his life forever. For now, he wandered, and like all seekers, he followed a question he could not yet answer, carried by hunger he could not yet name. It was an ordinary afternoon in Mysore, the kind of day when the sun was steady and the city moved at its usual rhythm. But for Jaggi, this day would divide his life into before and after. He had been restless as always, drifting between business, friendships, and long rides. That afternoon, without any clear reason, he rode his motorcycle toward Shamandi Hill, a place just outside the city where people often went for quiet walks or temple visit. He had been there before, many times, but never with a thought of what would happen. Parking his motorcycle, Jaggi climbed the hill and found a spot beneath a tamarind tree. The earth was warm beneath him. The air carried the faint sound of temple bells in the distance. He sat down, cross-legged, as he had done countless times before. But this time was different. As he sat, his breath slowed. His body grew still. At first, he thought he was simply resting, yet within a moment, something vast unfolded. The boundary between himself and the world around him seemed to dissolve. The air, the earth, the tree, the sky, everything merged, he could no longer tell where Jaggi ended and the world began. Time slipped away. What felt like minutes stretched into hours. He did not notice the sun move across the sky, or the people passing by. He was both nowhere and everywhere. A deep stillness wrapped him, yet inside that stillness was an infinite vastness, like space without end. He later described it as a moment when he became boundless, when his body sat under the tree, but his being stretched across the universe. Joy surged within him, not the joy of laughter or achievement, but a joy so pure it felt like the very fabric of life itself. When at last he opened his eyes, evening had arrived. The sun had set, and darkness was falling. He realized that he had been sitting there, unmoving, for nearly 7 hours. Yet to him, it felt as if only a short time had passed. The world looked utterly new. The same trees, the same street, the same people, but everything shimmered with aliveness. Even the air seemed to glow. He walked down the hill in silence, his heart overwhelmed. He knew, with a certainty deeper than thought, that life was not what it seemed. Behind the ordinary world lay something vast, infinite, and profoundly alive. That moment on Shamandi Hill changed everything. The restless young man who had chased thrills and asked endless questions had now touched an answer, not with words, but with experience. He could not explain it fully, not even to himself, but he knew that nothing would ever be the same again. When Jaggi walked down from Shamandi Hill that evening, he was not the same man who had climbed it. To those who saw him on the street, he looked unchanged, tall, lean, hair a little wild, eyes bright, but inside, everything had drifted. The days that followed felt dreamlike. Ordinary things, stones on the road, leaves in the wind, the laughter of children seemed filled with a glow. He often sat in silence, not out of effort, but because silence rose naturally within him. Where once he had been restless, now he carried a strange stillness, like a calm lake untouched by storm. Friends noticed. They asked why he was quieter, why his eyes seemed far away. Some teased him, saying he looked like a saint. Others grew curious, wondering what had happened on the hill. Jaggi struggled to put it into words. How could he explain that in one afternoon he had felt himself expand beyond body and mind? How could he explain joy that needed no reason? His family too saw the change. They had always worried about his rebellious ways, his disregard for rules. Now they worried for a different reason. He seemed detached from the world they knew, less interested in work, less concerned with daily matters. They did not understand that he was seeing life through new lens. For Jaggi, even simple acts became profound. Eating a meal felt like communion with the earth. Walking barefoot connected him to something vast. Sitting alone was no longer loneliness, but union with all that was. The joy he carried was steady, like an underground spring that never dried. But along with joy came responsibility. He realized that what had happened to him was not meant to be kept secret. It was too big, too generous, to belong to one man. If such boundless stillness could happen to him, an ordinary young man with no special training, then surely it could happen to others. The thought grew strong. This must be shared. He did not plan a mission, nor dream of fame. He simply wanted others to taste what he had tasted, to know that beneath the noise of life lay a silence so vast it could hold all suffering, all longing, all joy. So Jaggi began to gather small groups. At first it was friends, curious about his change. He spoke of his experience not as belief, but as possibility. He guided them through simple practices, breathing, sitting still, turning inward. Some laughed, some doubted, but others felt a glimpse of calm. Step by step, his role began to shift. From restless youth, he had become a guide. From seeker, he had become a source. He wasn't yet called Sadhguru, but already the man he would become was taking shape. The seed planted under the tamarind tree was now sprouting, and its branches would one day stretch far beyond Mysore, touching millions across the world. After his experience on Chamandi Hill, Jaggi no longer searched for meaning. He had touched it. Now his question was different. How do I share this with others? He began quietly. Friends, neighbors, and curious strangers gathered when they heard of the young man who spoke of stillness and joy with such certainty. He did not offer philosophy or complicated rituals. Instead, he guided them into simple postures, breathing exercises, and meditations. He showed them how to sit, how to breathe, how to turn their attention inward. At first, the groups were small, few people in someone's living room, a circle in a park, a gathering under a tree. Some came with skepticism, expecting little, yet many left with a new calmness, a glimpse of peace they had not known before. Word spread slowly but steadily. Jaggi did not advertise himself. He lived simply, wore plain clothes, often traveled by motorcycle to reach the places where he taught. He carried no title, no organization, only sincerity. His focus was never on numbers, but on depth, on helping each person taste what he had tasted on the hill. As months passed, his following grew. More people asked him to guide classes. More towns invited him to speak. He traveled widely across southern India, sometimes teaching in small halls, sometimes under open skies. Each session carried the same essence, not belief, but experience. He told people, "Do not believe my words, try it, and see for yourself." He earned little, often living on the edge of poverty, yet he did not mind. For him, sharing was wealth enough. He saw the light in people's eyes when they touched even a moment of inner stillness, and that was reward greater than coins. During this time, he also began to dream of something larger. He envisaged a space where people could come, not just for a class, but for transformation. A place where seekers could live, learn, and grow together. A center dedicated to the inner path. It was only a vision then, but it planted itself in his mind like a seed waiting for the right season. Jaggi's path was not easy. There were doubters, those who dismissed him as just another eccentric teacher. There were hardships, long journeys with little food or rest. But his clarity never wavered. The experience of boundlessness on Chamandi Hill had given him unshakable trust in what was possible for every human being. From those humble gatherings on porches, in parks, beside rivers, something much larger was beginning. Though he wasn't yet known to the world as Sadhguru, he was already guiding others toward their own inner awakening. The path was being built, stone by stone, breath by breath, seeker by seeker. What began as small gatherings under trees and in borrowed halls slowly grew into something far larger. Jaggi's dream of a space dedicated to inner growth began to take shape. With the help of volunteers, ordinary people moved by his clarity. Land was found outside the city of Coimbatore. It was quiet countryside, ringed by hills, touched by breezes that carried the scent of earth and rain. There, in 1992, the Isha Foundation was born. Its beginnings were humble, few huts, simple shelters, and open ground. The energy of those who built it gave it strength. People came not for money or fame, but because they felt a spark in Jaggi's presence. They worked by day, meditated by night, building brick by brick, tree by tree, a center where seekers could gather. Over time, Isha grew. Programs in yoga and meditation were offered. People arrived from villages, towns, and distant countries, curious about the tall man with piercing eyes who spoke simply yet carried the weight of silence. He told them not to follow him, to look within themselves. He offered tools, not beliefs, and thousands discovered, through practice, a taste of the stillness he had once felt on Chamandi Hill. The most sacred dream of all became Dai Naya Linga, a meditation space he envisaged as a doorway to stillness for anyone who entered. It took years of effort, tireless work from volunteers, and immense trust. In 1999, the Dayalinga was consecrated, a silent dome where seekers of every faith, or of no faith, could sit and touch the depths of meditation. From there, Sadhguru's reach expanded beyond India. His words carried across oceans, first through programs, later through books, interviews, and global talks. He spoke at the United Nations, at universities, at gatherings of leaders. He reminded modern minds that technology and wealth could not replace inner balance. He urged the world to care for soil, water, and planet as deeply as we care for success. His Isha Foundation became a home for thought. Volunteers, seekers, children learning in Isha schools, villages supported through social projects. Slowly, his voice became one of the most recognized in the world, not because of celebrity, but because it touched something timeless, the human longing for peace. Yet through all the expansion, Sadhguru remained the same man who once sat under a tamarind tree. He still rode motorcycles, still laughed easily, still lived with simplicity. Fame did not bind him. His work was never about being known. It was about awakening. From Mysore's trees to the hills of Kombato, from small circles of friends to world stages, the path had widened. The seed planted long ago had become a forest, and its shade reached across the globe. From a restless boy in Mysore to a seeker on the road, from a silent afternoon under a tamarind tree to guiding millions around the world. Sadhguru's story is the arc of a life lived in search of depth. It's not the tale of one man alone, but of what any human being can touch when they turn inward. Today, his prison stretches across continent. Through the Isha Foundation, programs are offered in villages and cities, schools and prisons, offices and stadiums. Children learn to breathe and sit with awareness. Workers pause to find calm in the middle of busy lives. Seekers travel long distances to sit in silence under the dome of the Dahanyal Linga, the tools he once shared with a handful of friends are now practiced by millions. But Sadhguru has never claimed the path as his own. Again and again, he reminds listeners, do not believe me, do not follow me. Simply experiment, look inward, and see for yourself. He speaks not as a preacher, but as a reminder that peace is not distant, not hidden in mountains or scriptures, but already within each heart. His message has expanded beyond the inner world, seeking the earth itself in danger. He launched a movement to protect soil, rivers, and forest. Campaigns like Rally for Rivers and Save Soil brought together farmers, scientists, leaders, and citizens across nations. For him, caring for the planet is not separate from spirituality. It's the same act of responsibility and reverence for life. And yet, despite the scale of his work, he remains grounded in the same spirit that shaped his youth. He still speaks of silence with the same wonder. He still rides motorcycles with the same freedom. He still laughs easily, sometimes breaking into stories that sound less like sermons and more like conversations with an old friend. His legacy is not carved in stone temples, but in the inner shift of countless lives. A student in a crowded city finds calm before exams. A mother learns to breathe more gently with her children. A worker discovers stillness in the middle of chaos. These are the quiet ripples of his work, ripples that travel farther than any speech or stage. Looking back, it seems almost unbelievable. A boy who once sat silently in trees, ignored in classrooms, restless on motorcycles, became a teacher for the world. But perhaps that is the lesson itself, that greatness does not arrive from outside. It is awakened within, in ordinary lives, through extraordinary awareness. As night falls and the world grows still, one can picture Sadhguru sitting quietly, eyes closed, listening to the hum of the earth, not as a celebrity, not as a leader, but as a seeker, still walking the path, still inviting others to join. This was Hypnos. Another story has been told, and now it's time to rest. Good night.